That's what I'm talking about, son. Get you some of that daggone pie.
Woo-hoo! Looky there! There's your bug-eyed big one right there.
Getting started. We're getting started.
Here's what I'm talking about. Gosh dang gorilla!
Let's go, baby. Straight meat. God, look at that big one.
All right, everybody, welcome into the BAM Pod. I'm your host, Big Ed, and on the line tonight, we've got a guy who's been, everywhere. Let's see, MLF, Bassmaster, you name it, he's done it. 28-year veteran, Mr. Randy Howell. Welcome into the show, sir.
What's going on, Big Ed? How you doing tonight?
Oh, we're just chilling out here. Finally got a nice little break in the weather, so we're sunny again. It'll probably be 95 this week. We'll all die and melt, but, whatever. Let's talk a little bit about what you've done out there. You've been kind of, cashing checks and, wrecking people's feelings and, going out there and doing it, man. I mean, you've been doing this a long time and, you went out to the heavy hitters and you qualified for the heavy hitters. That's a feat in its own right there, but you did it in dramatic fashion. You had a little bit of some might say a large fish to get in there. So, why don't we talk about that a little bit? We're fresh and fresh off of this thing, and you got some stuff coming up next. Is it this week or next week? I mean, this week or next week?
Yeah, we start practice on Sunday, Mother's Day, and it goes through the following week, the whole week next week.
Okay, so you got that coming up on you said Lay Lake.
No.
Guntersville.
Here at
That's
home.
right.
Yeah, right here where I live. So I get to stay in my own bed and be at my own home. So it'll be a great bonus next week for that one.
Oh, yeah. How far is it for the launch?
Oh, I've got launches all over the place within 5-10 minutes away. So it's all good and convenient. And I got a dock to put my boat in if I want to keep it here, but the lake is so big you have to go all over and launch at different places just to cover it all. But it's a great place to do it.
Okay. Well, let's jump back.
Get back to heavy hitters. Yeah, let me tell a little backstory on heavy hitters for those that don't really know what it is. It's a special event Major League Fishing created, I guess 3 years ago, and it's on the Bass Pro Tour, and it's really a great event that kind of rewards and gives you something to push hard and look forward to for catching a big fish in every tournament. So not only if you get big bass in the tournament, you get the extra, like $1,000 per day, and then I think it may be $3,000 or $5,000 for overall big fish in every tournament. But in every event, 7 Bass Pro Tour events with 80 guys, our biggest bass we catch during that tournament week is recorded. And for 7 events, you add all 7 of those big bass up, and that fills out the top 30 out of 80 guys for heavy hitters qualification. So last year I started the season last year with a 12-14, which was record, tour record, my record fish, and that kind of gave me about a pound and a half, jump start on everybody else there. There was a couple 11-pounders caught in that same week, and then at like Fork after that. So I still had to keep catching a big one in every tournament, and I had a pretty good year for the catching a good fish every week. And so I won the heavy hitters bracket last year, which you don't get any extra money for that. Unfortunately, I wish they had an award for that since I finally win. I win stuff a lot of times that don't have any money involved. I don't know why, but if we could. So anyway, getting in that event that's how we did it. So then we fished it last week in Louisiana, and it was on the 2 lakes that I set the records on last year. So that's why they went back to those big fish lakes, Caney Lake and Bussey Brake Lake in Louisiana, West Monroe, Louisiana. So there's a big fish place that we just hit it a little bit later than we needed to post-spawn, and had some cold fronts during the post-spawn time, and just made the fishing a little slower than it would have been, I think. And we had a lot of pressure on the lakes since we put them on the map last year with all those big fish caught. More people are coming from everywhere to fish those lakes, and there's tons of, I had the lake record when I left there last year, and they've broken that lake record, I think, 4 times since then, and it's like at 15 pounds and change now. And so great way to start a big event. And Heavy Hitters pays $25,000 in the first round, 2 days of fishing for each group of guys. So 30 guys, 15 guys fished first round. Group A, Group B, 15 guys. So all you got to do is catch the biggest bass out of those 15 guys for 2 days and get 25 grand. And Dakota Abear caught a 9-pounder both days, and he ended up winning the 25 grand. And then my group, the knockout round, I got into the knockout round with 16 guys left trying to make the top 10 for the final day. And the big bass on that one knockout round day was $50,000. And that day was a very tough, bright, bluebird, sunny day, a weekend where lots of boat traffic, and nobody caught one bigger. And I caught a 6-pound, 4-ouncer about midday off a bed, sight fishing, and really didn't think when I caught it, it was no way that would hold for 50 grand. So I didn't even think about it. I was just happy to catch a 6-pounder and move up in the standings for the day, and in hopes of making the top 10 to fish the final day. And lo and behold, by the end of the day, I kept catching more fish and took the lead and won the round. And nobody ever caught a bigger than 6'4" fish that day, and I won 50 grand. So man, it was an awesome blessing and big bonus. And then that helped me move on to the final day there at Bussey Brake, where I caught the 12-pounder. So I had high hopes going back there in hopes of catching another really big one. And that final day, 10 guys, only one bass paid $100,000 for one bass that day, the biggest fish. And so Brian Thrift ended up catching a 9-pound, 7-ouncer, only one he caught that day, but he got $100,000 for it. So just an amazing event. General Tire and Bass Pro Shops and a few others put up the extra big money for that, and that's why we fish out of the tour boats in that event and wear the tour sponsor jerseys. And it's kind of a trade out deal because all the money they put in there for bonus. So it's really a great event, and one I hope to make every year.
Now, part of that event is a qualification only. No entry fees or anything like that, right? That's you're fishing. Correct. Basically for free.
It's a free one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And everybody gets $4 grand, I think, for being there. So it's good.
Wow. I mean, that alone is just enough to want to make it every year. I mean, I mean, Alton Jones Jr. won that thing, and he got $100,000 for winning. So I mean, I mean, not your odds, but your chances. I mean, you got a chance of walking out of there with what, $275,000 if you had a great event for free.
Yeah, if you could have swept it, it would have been. Yeah, that's exactly right. You could have had a clean sweep, which would be almost impossible in this sport probably, but Jacob Wheeler could do it, as much as he's won, but he didn't do it this time. So it's exciting just knowing that opportunity's there. And we fished 3 events this year so far, and I've caught a pretty good one in all 3 events. So I'm in like 5th place going into this 4th tournament here at Guntersville for heavy hitters for next year. So I'm happy about that. So hopefully I can keep catching those big bass. When you're out watching the Bass Pro Tour live stream, which is really the best live stream in the game, and very, informative, and it's very addictive. It's hard to ever quit watching it if you ever start. And you'll hear guys say, "I got my heavy hitters fish," or "Man, that's a heavy hitters fish." If you hear that, people using that term, that's why it's so important. That's what guys are referring to when they say that.
Yeah. What do you? I haven't researched this, and I probably should have. But what has been the lowest fish caught every event to and still make it? What do you think? What do you think the smallest fish has been? It's like, as you said, you add up all 7 of them, but somewhere in there are guys catching, like their biggest fish is only a 4-pounder or 5, but they still make it.
Yeah, it's an average, it just averages out. Some places are higher and some places are lower, but at the end of the year, you just have to take whatever 30th place is and the total weight. And if it's 30 pounds, seemed like, I don't remember what the numbers were last year because I was in first, so I never looked down at the bubble line, which was good. Yeah. But it seemed like it was 30 plus 30 something pounds. So you think you had to average, I feel like you had to average nearly 5 pounds or over 5 pounds per fish per tournament to get in there. And that might not be correct. It might have been 35 It might have been 35 or 38 pounds.
Wow.
Really, I don't know for sure.
Yeah,
That's something to look up and see.
Yeah, it'd be fun to see what you'd have to go out there and just to like, because it's kind of like the NBA playoffs. All you want to do is make it. Once you make it, what you do after that's all on you. So
that's right. That's
yeah.
exactly right. So it definitely pushes you to try to push hard. I mean, everybody's trying to catch a big fish every cast, but still you're more conscious of it, and it makes you a little more mindful of everything you do every day in hopes of, just catching that fish over 5 pounds. Because usually if you catch one over 5 pounds, you're gonna be right there where you need to be about everywhere you go.
Well, and I was going to say that because, now with the new, the format change and a little different, do you think it's easier to kind of to look for that one bigger fish as compared to maybe in the old times when you were, or in the original times when you were fishing for just every fish could count as long as it was a legal size, every scoreable bass counted? Is it easier now to kind of focus on that?
Bass Angler Magazine is your guide to better bass fishing. Bass Angler is dedicated to helping you catch more and bigger bass no matter what time of year or where you live. This is not your ordinary fishing magazine. Every issue is jam-packed with 30-plus articles from the world's best bass anglers. Bass Angler Magazine is available at bassanglermag.com, Tackle Warehouse, Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, Gander Mountain, Walmart, and better tackle shops everywhere. Bass Angler also makes a great gift for any angler. Get Bass Angler today and start catching more bass tomorrow. Visit bassanglermag.com or your favorite tackle shop. This is not your ordinary fishing magazine. bassanglermag.com.
It's absolutely, easier. I hate to say the word easier in this group of anglers.
Right.
There's no such thing as easier, but what you're saying and what I'm saying too, meaning that you can be more thoughtful of trying to target a bigger fish and not get behind. Before you tried to even think about throwing a big swim bait or fishing real slow, flipping, targets and things like that. When there's fish out in the open water, guys are catching on the live scope active target stuff. Then you could get behind really quick and couldn't catch up. So now with the 5-fish deal, you can kind of work it a little bit more toward catching bigger fish.
Do you, with that change like that, do you feel, because you just said something there that I really think is interesting, in that, like you said, you're fishing against some hammers out there, and these guys, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. So if you're not, keeping in the flow, but now with the 5-fish, every lake pretty much, I don't want to say every lake, has a limit that you get to, but there's pretty much a limit on what a lake's going to put out. You're going to Guntersville now, it could be 30, it could be 35, it could be 25. Does that give you a little bit of a sense that, hey, you know what? I know there's a 30-pound bag in here, and I'm sitting on, 20 pounds right now. And I know that the leader's, sitting at 27, but there's still a 30 in there. Does this change give you that confidence of, hey, I've got some time to get to where that lake's can put out 30 pounds. I think I can get 30 pounds. Is that there now?
Yeah, it definitely gives you that sense of knowing what to expect and what it is to be expected. Where before, with no limits, in the past, if you fished in Group B like me, like if I was in Group B, the first day we were off and we watched Group A on the score tracker all day, and everybody's anxious by the end of the day to kind of find out what's good on this lake right now, what's going to be good on this lake. And when you had that no limits deal, you didn't know if it was going to be 100 pounds first place that day, and then what was the cut going to be? Was the cut going to be 40 pounds that day? And then if it was 40 pounds, you were going to know what to expect the next day when you go out. You got to catch at least 40 pounds if you're going to be in the cut, because that's going to be about average. So that just put a lot more pressure on you to know you got to catch that many fish every day. And especially when you didn't have a good practice, you got to keep wondering what you got to do to figure it out, or what did you miss? Why wasn't I catching them like this guy's catching them? So now the 5-fish, I call it restrictor plate fishing. referring it to NASCAR, because that's basically what, when we put that out there, that just puts a restrictor plate from anybody running away from the field or getting on a big school of fish out there on the active target and just mopping up on 2 to 3 pounders or something, and it just lets everybody play their game and their art and their craft, because everybody has not everybody, but there's a good bit of guys that have an art to one specific technique or style of fishing. A lot, there's some guy like a Randall Tharp is known as a flipper and a big fish flipper and a slower style fisherman. And there's handfuls of guys like that, especially the older guys that have been around a while like me. There's, but with me, I do a lot of different things and try to do different stuff, but it kind of helps me even now to get back to what got me into being a pro fisherman and how I made a living for 30 plus years doing it, fishing my strengths. I don't have to go out there and chase every bite, and try to do all the things that I was doing to try to compete. But at the same time, like I've said before, at the same time, that format the past 3 or 4 years has made me the best tournament angler I've ever been in my career. And that's amazing to say that at 49 years old, because, in basketball, football, any other sport, you max out on your age and you pretty much start going downhill. And in fishing, it's not like that, completely. And that format pushed me to be better. It made me faster, more efficient, more mindful of every little detail that I got to do to hurry up. I can't relax. Can't sit down and take an eating break, except for your 15-minute breaks that you get. And it just made me faster and better. And it's made a lot of us better. That's why now with the 5-fish deal, you're even seeing guys catch better 5-fish limit weights as a whole, because everybody has gotten to be a better angler because of that format in the past, I think.
Yeah, for me, as one of the observers that's sitting there watching you guys fish out there and seeing these on the events, it was always interesting when this first kind of came around that you would hear, because something you just said was, Randall Tharp's known for this, and different anglers are all known for different things. It's kind of like, Ishman Rowe's known for frogs. Skeet Reese was known for this, crankbait, swim baits, you name it. But it was always interesting to me was when you were watching it, you'd go out there and some guy like Takahiro was out there and he's, he starts lighting up the board. Oh, he must be doing this, or, oh, this guy's lighting up the board. He must be doing this. And 9 times out of 10, that's not what they were doing at all.
Yeah.
It was, they figured something else out. I mean, I think the only guy that I ever saw was, that was just really, everybody was like, oh, he's throwing a swim jig, and there's just, and it's just like, that's what he was doing, because that's, what he does. And it's like, but that was kind of the neat thing, is like you said, it made you a better fisherman because you had to adapt. You had to figure out what these fish completely wanted. You couldn't just sit back, wait for your 5 and say, hey, I'm going to get 5 on a jig today, because that's what I like to do.
That's right. It made everybody have to be versatile more than we've ever been in the past, and so it stretched everybody, and it stretched everything we've ever known as tournament anglers, and especially that it stretched the limits in our own mind, because that's one of the things, I always respected and looked up to Rick Clunn a lot over the years, and and he's like a, real, like the old E.F. Hutton, when he speaks, you better listen, kind of old commercials from the old days. And when he said, and he used to say that the only limits that we have is what we put on ourselves, and that's really the limits that we all fished under for years. And that's what you just thought, well, that's the best I can do, and that's the best everybody else is doing, so that's kind of the way it is. And then when this format came about on Major League Fishing, we started seeing the guys excel and just run away from us. Like, I always say Jacob Wheeler, because he won Angler of the Year 2 years in a row, and he really dominated that format. He's won more than anybody in the sport just in 5 or 6 years in Major League Fishing, and it just that pushed us all to be better, and it made me want to be better. A lot of guys get mad and want to make reasons, excuses, and all these other things because he's beating them so bad, but I simply applaud him and think it's amazing that he can catch them like he does, and I want to catch them better too, and that's why I've gotten better at it too. So it's exciting for me, and it's kind of brought my passion back and reignited the fire in me that I had, all my career. I went through a little slump there for a couple of years during that COVID year. I actually got COVID bad that first year and had to miss the tournament at Champlain, got double pneumonia, and had to come home, and just had a really bad, that whole season went downhill. I finished like right at the bottom of the standings for the year. And then last year was the year to come back from that. And I had a good year, won heavy hitters and made the Red Crest event. So that whole, coming together of all that with the format and the push and the change just really helped me just get better and love it more.
With you saying that, coming up and, you're ending at the end of the year, you're 47 at the time?
49, 47, and yeah.
Yeah, at the time. So did you ever look at that? And, we've got Kevin Van Dam's leaving the sport. Shaw Grigsby's leaving the sport. There's some guys in it. No, they're not leaving the sport necessarily, but they're leaving the competitive side of it. Did you, when you had that kind of go on, you got sick, you had did it ever cross your mind to think about retiring at that point?
No, it crossed my mind that you hear the enemy voices in your head saying stuff like that, but I never took it at all to my soul, to say, because I know I still had a lot of fire left in me and a lot of passion for it, and I feel way too young to even think about retiring in the way, I'm different than some people. I don't think you even should retire anyway. I mean, I feel like I'm going to just fish until I can't do it anymore, and that's why you see our sport. The guys are so many guys that are older that just keep going and going and going. Van Dam's really one of the only people that really ever do something like say he's retiring. Everybody else is kind of just finally fizzled out and not as competitive anymore. Like, Shaw is still, he just finished at the bottom of the standings, I think, a few times there maybe, and him and Paul Ice were a few that got bumped out with the attrition of people falling out and the new guys coming in from the Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit. And it just really, but he's gone to the pro circuit now, and he just had a top 10 last week, and he's 65 or better years old, I think. And then Paul Ice is like 71, 72, and he's over there still fishing away. So that's the great thing about our sport. You can just keep doing it and loving it, and even though you can't be as good at it as some of them, you still keep doing it.
Yeah. And that's guys like yourself. I love when I see guys like yourself who are you're passionate. You caught that 12-pounder and it was like a kid, it's just like, oh my God. Right. I mean, what do you do with that? It's the biggest fish, it's the biggest fish you've ever caught, I'm guessing.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's just like, oh my gosh. And, you did it in Louisiana. So it's, I don't know, that place is really, this is a question I was going to ask you because you did that because of heavy hitters and all this before we move on to Guntersville. But what do you think? Like, there's some lakes out there that have been getting a lot better. Two, you guys have been seeing a lot of new lakes. Do you really think that we've seen some of the best so far? Are there more to come? And what are your favorite ones that you love to fish?
Yeah, another good thing about our Major League Fishing style, we have 80 anglers and we only fish 40 anglers on any given day. So we can go to smaller lakes and smaller venues than Bassmaster can with 100 boats every day. So, and that's how it has kind of helped us get into places where other people haven't fished, just like those lakes in Louisiana. Those lakes are way too small really to put a 100-boat tournament on, although they do it every weekend on local tournaments there in high school, they say, but it's a nightmare, 5,000-acre lake with that many boats. So I love going to these new places, and we really, and that's the good thing too. All the anglers on the 80 angler tour, we have 3 tournament. We pick 3 lakes and rivers or lakes in every state. And when we have a survey they send out, and the selection group sends out, and we send in our ideas and our thoughts about lakes we think would be good lakes, and then our angler board, sends that out and starts to vet through it, and then Mike Malone and the team that puts the terms together with the tourism people, they start going and looking for, seeking the sponsorship and the money and things like that to come to an area. And there's a lot of good lakes and areas that we'd like to go that probably never will go because they don't have any money in that tourism department. They don't spend money to bring us there, and it still comes down to money because that's how we got to make a living. They got to run a tournament. So, but we will get to go fish a lot of places that other tourists don't get to fish, and that part's great.
Okay. And that's, I think for me and watching some of the events, I love to see when people come to one of our local lakes. And now I'm out in California, and I know you guys probably never come out this way. But it is one of those things. It's really nice to see them, it's like come out, show off. It's kind of like us showing off, what we have to offer. And the other side of that is that, you guys go out there and it always gives us something to aim at. It's like, you guys come out and rack up 25 to 40 pounds a day. And it's like, hey, I've never caught anywhere near that, so, it gives us something to shoot at.
It is a lot of great lakes out west. Unfortunately, it's just so far out of the norm for the 92 or 3% of the tour anglers that are from Texas back east, and when you put that much with cost of everything, especially in California, as much as everything costs too, it's just a losing proposition when they have a tournament out there. So I'm kind of glad that we haven't had any on our tour out there. We had several of them with Bassmaster back in the old days, and once I got there and went through the 3 or 4 days of driving to get somewhere. Once you got there, it was great fishing and enjoyable time. But it's just the money. Even if you win a $10,000 check in a tournament, and you still lost money after driving out there 2 weeks and staying and doing all the stuff you did. So it's just it comes down to the dollars and cents. But man, the lakes out there are great, and there's a lot of great lakes all over the country that we pass by going to and from everywhere that hopefully we'll get to fish some of.
Yeah, hopefully it's just another great point about what MLF is doing right now, and the way they're approaching things, and giving you guys the opportunity to fish lakes that you haven't before or have heard of, and would love to fish but don't get to until you go to an event there. But let's talk a little bit. Guntersville's coming up. You're gonna be at home. There's always the curse out there. There's always, hey, hometown, and you're not, I don't know. I don't know what that curse really is as far as that. I mean, I know a couple guys have broken it or, have gotten close. So what do you really feel like? I mean, this is your home water. You get to go home, sleep in bed and all that. Is it too much comfort? Rick Clunn used to say that. Speaking of Rick Clunn, he used to say that, this is a guy who used to sleep on the edge of the lake in a tent so that he could feel the barometric pressures up and down and what these fish went through all night long. And, he put his mentality into it that much. Is it a real thing? You feel some nerves going into this one?
Bass U, folks. Information is pouring over. If you want to learn more about every lake, how to fish, shallow, deep, in between, skipping docks and rocks and cranking, slow wiggling, shatter, smattering, you get it at Bass U. We got the best of the best. If somebody's ever caught a bass on something and perfected the technique, we got you covered. Get on Bass U TV, check it out, sign up, be a member, be part of it, folks. Keep learning. I'm Gerald Swindle. Subscribe to Bass U.
I definitely feel a little more, probably a little more nerves, if you want to call it that, just because of the expectation. And it's the expectation. It's a little bit of expectation from everybody else, but it's also a high expectation I put on myself because I do have more knowledge about this lake than most of the field, not all the field, but most of them. But I am a transplant. I moved here 7 years ago. And I don't fish here very much when I'm home, because when I do come home from 2 or 3 weeks on the road, I don't feel like going fishing for a week or two before I have to go do it again somewhere else. So it kind of keeps me from fishing here a lot, but I love it. It's got so many bass in it. And so you really want to show out and do well, especially I won the Classic here in 2014. I didn't live here then, and then I liked it so much here. We moved here a year after I won the Classic. So, but like you say, the comfort, definitely the comfort of it, and the distractions of everything around home, kind of gets you a little bit out of your element. Because when I go to a tournament somewhere, I don't have nothing to focus on but that tournament, that lake, that week, and I'm by myself. Usually my boys used to travel with me all the years, and now my last one's in high school playing basketball, so my wife hadn't been able to travel the last couple of years. And so I'm by myself, and I'm focused on everything detail-wise, and I'm not distracted. But here at Guntersville, I've got to be careful because I got all these people, all these neighbors and friends, and all these people around, and I live on the lake. I got a garage with all my tackle and my equipment. I'm actually sitting in my boat right now doing this, podcast with you and working on tackling here. So I do have to be careful to stay focused and not drift off or get distracted. And the other thing with me is versatility. Sometimes can be a blessing, and sometimes it can be a curse, because I'm versatile to a point of sometimes not good, because I can't, if you can catch fish doing 6 different techniques, I want to do all 6 of them a lot of times. I have a hard time focusing on one, and it's kind of the ADD fishing, as I call it. I'll jump around and do this, that, and other, but you can do that on this lake so well. You can catch them so many different ways here. I just got to be careful to pick the right horse to ride all week, and not do the wrong thing and catch fish and not catch big enough fish. That's what I got to thinking about more than anything.
Yeah, definitely. I recently got to go out and fish that lake, and it was like you said, it was just such a pretty lake to fish it, and the way to fish it, and how coming from out here, we talk about, we have some big lakes, we've got the Delta, we got the Clear Lakes, like that. I was blown away at the size of some of these waterways out there. I mean, Guntersville is massive. It just felt like we got on the road next to it. We launched clear down, past the little store down there. And it was just like, we just kept going and kept going and kept going. It was like, good gosh, there is so many places to launch, so many places to fish, and every place, it's kind of like driving across the Delta. You're just like, no, that looks good, let's stop here. No, that looks good, let's stop there. And
it all looks good. I know.
Oh, like you said, and the amount of the grass. Yeah.
You can fish here for days and not catch any fish. It's a lot of dead water on the lake, and that's what happens to a lot of people that come here on their bucket list and come here and look forward to getting here, and they get out here and start fishing. And if they come at the wrong time of the year, or they come here and don't have but a couple of days and the weather's not good, or especially if you come and you don't get a guide or get some real good information to get in the right part of the lake, you can go out there and fish grass forever and not get a bite. It can happen real easily. So you gotta, and that's why I love this lake too, because like you say, when you came, it's just a beautiful place. The rolling hills here, and the foothills, rolling hills here, the Appalachian Mountain area. Then you got the Tennessee River, and it goes all the way into Tennessee, and it's 75 to 80 miles long, and it's you got ramps all the way along the way. So you can go around there and just put in a different creek and fish it like a whole nother lake day after day after day, and never see the same water twice for a long time. And that's what's so cool about it.
Yeah, it was interesting to see how many little, it just seemed like every little point that went out on that lake had somebody had gone out there and built a launch ramp. Let's launch here.
It's all free, man. If it was California, they'd all be $20-$40, wouldn't they?
Every
That's
one
what
of
I
them.
love about it. Yeah, I love it here because it's all free.
That for anybody listening who's from here, we know. It's like there is probably I can only think of maybe one place, and it's Clear Lake. You've got some free launch ramps there. Other than that, you're paying for everywhere else out, to launch. When we got back there, It was, I mean, I think the highest I saw was like $5, you know, and I'm looking at it going, who cares about $5? And they're mad that it's $5. You know, it was super interesting to see, to see that kind of going on. It was like, no, it doesn't cost anything. This is our lake. We pay for this with our taxes. We pay for this with whatever. Why would they charge us again? It's like, I don't know.
I know.
I don't know.
That's right. That's good old Alabama, man. One of the reasons I moved here from North Carolina. This is a great state to live for all the reasons, taxes and, people, food, waterways, everything. It's just a real good, reasonable place to live, raise a family.
Yeah, that was when we went back there, we kind of did the same thing you did. We looked at it and was like, wow, this is a really nice place. It's beautiful here. The amount of fishing in the area. I mean, bass fishing is not secondary. It's definitely first. And it is amazing how many lakes are, like you said, the Tennessee River system alone. It's like you can fish in 3 or 4 different states on the same body of water. You just lock through the next one and lock through the next one and it just keep on going. It's like Kentucky, Alabama, Tennessee, all the way out.
Yeah, that's right.
It is crazy how much you guys have out there. But getting back to Guntersville a little bit, we're talking about how good it looks to fish and how much, but then again, there's dead water and there's this and that. Don't give away anything. I don't want you to be out there telling it. But let's talk a little bit about some of the fun, some of the ways you really like to attack that lake and go after it and catch some of those fish that are out there. Because I've seen a bunch of different ways guys are catching fish.
Yeah, that's the thing. The grass is very healthy and it's all over the lake. There's all types of vegetation. So there'll be multiple grass patterns that happen anywhere from 0 to 12 feet, and there'll be, shallow top water type fishing going on here, there, swim jigging and chatterbait type stuff. And then there'll be, the deeper edges of grass where you can still use 3/4 ounce chatterbait or 1 ounce spinnerbait, and even cranking edges of the deeper grass and even plastics, flipping and throwing worm type stuff on the edges of that eel grass. And then, but one of the more dominant with our group it's going to be offshore, because we've got so many great anglers that are offshore anglers with the electronics, and that's one of the things that just opens my eyes more and more that I want to learn more about and get better at is the electronics game. And this is a lake you can play the game on better than as good as anywhere, because there's so many big bass that just swim around in the abyss out there following bait fish around, and nobody's ever known they were there until we get active target and you start scoping around out there and you see them. And so that's something I'm still trying to get better at. And my son Laker's 21 years old, and he's a licensed guide here on Guntersville, and he's fishing Toyota Series and also the Taqueros Pro Circuit he qualified through last year for. So he's fishing all those tours and trying to be a pro as well. But he's a guide here, and he's a young guy, so he's really good with electronics, and he's helped me. Last 2 years, he's really helped set my units up on my boat and taught me how to set them up correctly. Fished with me several times, and we've played the games out there on the screen and gotten confidence in it, and I've gotten a lot better at it because of what he's helped me with. And so that's going to be a big factor here. We're going to have a lot of fish getting caught out there on the scope type fishing, and probably in that I'd say really probably 12, 14 foot down to 20, 22 foot range. That's going to be a lot of fish caught in that depth range probably.
Wow. I think, I mean, you know what it is out here, and 20 to 22 foot is just it's such an interesting thing because it just seems so shallow. It's like that's just some of the mainstay that we fish. We don't have grass lakes like that as much, except for maybe Clear Lake and the Delta, but for the most part. So it's interesting to think of and to see what you guys are going to be targeting. I like this time of year. We have it's such an interesting thing because, you're coming off of some lakes that I haven't paid as much attention to the weather there, but I know that the spawns, I've got good friends that live there and fish Chickamauga, fish, Guntersville, fish, all these big lakes back there. And they talk about, we're in that position where the spawn's starting to get over, you're starting to get into that post spawn, but you still have everything going on right now. Do you feel like that's going to be going on at this tournament at Guntersville?
Yeah, I think there will be a lot of that going on. Even though we had a little bit of an earlier spawn earlier in the spring this year, we had a real big warm up in February, and I was in South Carolina, and we had a big spawn that happened there on Clark Hill Lake that kind of caught me by surprise, and I didn't even get on the bite till the second day after I had a bad first day. And then I caught them on beds the second day, and nobody's hardly ever caught them off beds in South Carolina on a major lake like Clark Hill in February, and we did. And then I had people back at home here, you know, posting pictures of catching bedding fish on Guntersville February 28th, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's so rare. So there was probably a small spawn that happened then. And then March probably had another good spawn. And then April, we had a lot of cooler weather, a lot of cold fronts this time in April. And I think it kept the water temperature cooler than usual. So we probably didn't have as many spawn in April as we normally do. And it might have held some of them over to spawn here in this May moon. And we just had the full moon this week, May 5th. And probably had a lot of fish on beds right now that they'll probably be going off while we start fishing next week. So I don't foresee it being much of a spawn tournament at all. It's probably going to be mostly a post spawn tournament and an offshore tournament. And but they'll be fish in all stages to be able to catch. And that's the thing about this lake that surprises you. I never say never, because as soon as I do, you know, somebody goes and catches 30 pounds, up there in 2 or 3 feet of water, seeing them swimming around, you know, because they chase brim beds around a lot, and the brim bed pattern is a real big pattern here that's pretty known. So it could be some of that too.
With saying that, one of the things that I know happens is that right after they get off those beds, once they stop spawning like that, there's a little bit of a window in there where they don't really want to bite anything for a minute. They're looking and they're just like, wait, I got to recover from doing all this activity, from spawning, from getting all these eggs out, the bucks are a little more active sometimes, but it drops the weight of the fish down. Do you see that possibly happening while you're out there? Maybe this isn't going to be that, 25 to 30, maybe it's only 15 to 18 pounds a day, if even that.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen on this lake. It's just the reason for that is just because it's got so many fish in it. So even if they're in one stage, one group of fish is in one stage, there's 3 groups that have already went through that stage, and they already, I just know from the weights that have been coming the last 2 weekends in local tournaments, they're all mostly offshore guys that are guides and people that fish here a lot that typically are known as offshore anglers, and they're weighing in 28 pounds last Saturday, won a big one, and then 29 pounds the weekend before, and 30 pounds the day before that. And so some of them big bags that are already coming out there with fish that are feeding and getting fat again after they spawn, probably in March. And so you'll see some of that, and then you'll also see some of the old post-spawn skinny ones that are still finishing up spawning like this week probably, but they probably won't be the ones to be targeting, because there's going to be so many other ones out there feeding and ready to eat again. And probably a shad spawn going on this coming up in our tournament, that may make them be feeding early in the morning like that too. So it's wide open. It's going to be a great one to watch on live stream every day, because you could really see a lot and learn a lot from all these great anglers in that live stream.
For nearly 100 years, Grundens has built gear you can trust to keep you fishing no matter the weather conditions. With head-to-toe coverage of high-performance outerwear, sportswear, footwear, and much more, it's no wonder Grundens products are backed by some of the bass fishing's most prominent figures, such as Skeet Reese, Randall Tharp, Adrian Avina, and Jonathan Van Dam, just to name a few. Grundens. We are fishing.
Yeah, I love watching it. It's one of those ones like you talk about. You do learn a lot of things and see a lot of stuff that go, to go out and apply the next time you try to, you get a chance to go out and go fishing. Looking back at this, I'd also like to see, and I know a lot of people out there listening right now, or, they're going to be listening. They would love to know, What's your top 5 for baits for going on this time of year? Because I mean, we're in that transition part, and some days, now you guys are on the water all the time. You have a lot of going on. You're more in touch with the fish than probably anybody else in the world. That's just the way it is right now because you guys are fishing so much. This time of year, this transition from spring into summer into, some of them are going to be heading out deep, some will be up shallow. So what's your top 5 baits when you basically head out in the day? You're like, hey, I'm going to tie up. This is what I'm going with. This is my confidence this time of year. Why don't you give us a little bit about that?
All right, let's see if we can narrow them down to 5. Because truly there's 7 or 8, but 5 will probably. I'll probably start with definitely a big walking bait. I'm a Livingston lures guy, so I use a Livingston walking boss top water bait, and this lake's always got a potential for a big bite on top water this time of the year on any time of the day. And so I'll keep that on, throw it a little bit in the morning. If we get a couple clouds roll in, you never know when you can just pick it up and sling it across the big flat point, because some of those big females that are feeding after they spawn, they'll be roaming around out there just chasing bait. So that top water is going to be one I would say. And then probably next would be a good old Cinco, Yamamoto Cinco. It's hard to beat a Cinco for wacky style, and what fish that'll be left shallow that are maybe in brim beds, feeding on brim, things like that. The 6-inch Cinco is a little bit bigger than 5, and that 6-inch is a really good bait, green pumpkin, purple green color, because it's kind of a brim imitator, wacky style shallow. That's going to be something I have tied on, and I'll throw that for sure every day somewhere a few times a day, and probably catch some good fish on that, I'm hoping. And then getting out there offshore, the schooled up fish that are out there on the river bars, on the shell beds and things like that, it's going to be the cranking bite. And I use a Livingston Deep Impact 18, which is called a DI 18, which is similar to a 6XD Strike King type bait, runs 18 to 20 feet deep. That's going to be a good bait to cover water on those ledges. And now with the active target and forward face sonar, we can see those schools out there on the bars and kind of chase them around. And that crankbait's a good bait to cover, and they'll bite the crankbait better in May than they will any time of the year. Because May, when they first school up and get out there, that's when they'll chase the crankbait. Then as it gets hotter and more pressure on the lake, more people, then you have to start slowing down and getting a little more finessey with the plastic on the bottom. So crankbait, and then the backup bait out there is going to be a big worm, like a 775 Yamamoto cut-tail worm on a big Magnum shaky head type deal, and also a drop shot out there with a smaller worm for a little more finessey time. If it's slick, calm, and sunny and hot, no water moving, you might have to finesse those same fish out there with that drop shot. And I use that Daiwa Yamamoto worm by Daiwa. It's called a Nico Crawler. It's a small worm on a drop shot, and that's a good way. Even though it's a little bait, you can catch 7-pounders on it. If they're out there, they'll bite it. So that's 5. I think that's 5.
That's 5.
6, but that's 5. Yeah, that's 5.
I know that's a hard one sometimes to break down into just 5 and say, hey, I know I can do it on this. You did slip a drop shot in there. So that's something that it's funny to me because, I mean, there's been, I don't know, a lot of money won on a drop shot, a lot of money won on some of these crankbaits is another one that, sometimes can be a little tougher, for people to get a bid on just because they have to dedicate to it. It's kind of like throwing a big swim bait. It's like you got to kind of dedicate to throwing that crankbait and understand how you're supposed to hit it and where you're there.
I want to throw a swim bait in that top 5 too, but I couldn't do it. So, but if there's a 6 man off the bench, that swim bait's going to be the one coming off the bench.
That's going to be it. Is now when you talk about a swim bait, are you talking about like a 3-inch, a 4-inch? Are you talking about the 8-inch ones, or what's kind of the key to throwing those things?
More for the offshore bite I'm talking about. So like a 6-inch plastic, just a soft plastic swim bait with on a big 3/4 or 1 ounce open hook, jig head. You put them on there, and throw it out, let it sink down on those 20-foot ledges, and just reel it slow through those schools of fish. And those big fish will hit that swim bait, really well. But then also there'll be a lot of people throwing the glide baits and the big swim baits. I've got my big Livingston Byron Velvet 8-inch vipers and 6-inch vipers that are the great big baits that I would love to catch some on them, and I will have them tied on. And that's another thing on the active target out there. If you start seeing some of those big fish cruising in singles, coming up off the bottom, roaming around, not really chasing something, and you can get that big glide bait or swim bait over their head, sometimes they'll react and come up and get it. So you'll see a lot of that happening here too, I think.
Yeah, that's it's kind of interesting because I think the top, except for the first one, the Walking Boss is a little bigger bait. But the rest of them that you were talking about in there, I guess the cut tail is also a bigger bait, the one you were talking about. But it's one of those things. It's like a lot of finessier stuff, a lot of more intricate, looking into getting those fish to bite that are, was using some smaller baits to do that. With this kind of the year coming up, and now you're talking about, or this time of year, and now you're talking about some swim baits. So there's a big range of what you're talking about, baits that can really work this time of year. Now that's, to me, I like that. It's like, so, but are you, and always when you start picking up those bigger swim baits, you start picking up, Byron Velvet, the bait that you're talking about, you're talking about, you're hoping for a big fish. You want your heavy hitter fish to come there.
That's right. And that's when you can, now with the 5-fish format, on this lake, once you catch 20 pounds on Guntersville next week, 20 pounds is going to be a kind of a staple cut, a weight that you need to get to be safe and feel pretty good about your day. But once you get there, it gets hard to upgrade from there, and it not hard as it is some lakes, but it just gets a little harder because you're going to have all 4+ 4.5 pounder type fish, and you can still catch a 6 and a 7 and cull out a 4.5, but to do that, that's not going to be shaky head drop shot stuff as much. That's when you can take that gamble a little bit more and feel good about having 20 pounds on the score tracker. Then you can pick that big 8-inch Livingston glide bait up and try to make some highlights, as I call it.
Saying that is, and I know it's only going to matter per day, but you got Group A, you got Group B. You don't know which one you're in yet, but you go out and you find your fish, you get this 20. Is that pretty much what you're putting in your head is, hey, I've got to go get this 20 pounds. I've got to get that. I got to get it nailed down. Or is it simply, hey, there's 20 pounds doesn't make the cut, so you got to move up. But do you go into the day thinking, hey, 20 pounds is that's what I'm shooting for?
Yeah, first for sure. We know what group we're in already because it's done prior to from the standings and how it all sets up. So I'm in Group A, and then once I'm in Group A here, I know the next one I'm gonna be in Group B, and then they started over for the next 2 events, and it flip flops again. So I am in Group A, but you definitely know when you go out here next week. My goal the first 2 days is going to be to definitely have at least 20 pounds both days, because we're going to have to make that top 20 cut out of our 40-man group to move on, and then you lose all that weight and it starts over at 0. So you don't really have to go out there and try to win that, because you don't really get anything for it. You just want to make that top 20 and be as careful as you can by not beating them up too bad. And then once it starts over the knockout round, now the knockout round is accumulating again for the final day, and it's 2 more days. So it's a 2 more day tournament. That's the days you got to hammer down, and can't be satisfied with 20 anymore. You got to go for 25 or better will be a goal after you make it past that initial round.
And that's basically where I was going with that is you're not out there trying to beat your fish up or anything, because I think this is part of the what makes five fish limit's so different or so difficult in that way is you really have to monitor your fish. You really have to, how am I going to do this? How am I, I want to get my 20 pounds, but at the same time, I don't want to get 80 fish to do, to go through 80 fish to try to get that. I want to get this in as efficiently as I can and then just pay attention and hope that, 20 pounds is going to be the cut and not 23. Now you go to what's the last round that they cut the weight? Is it the final day? Do they cut it all on the final day?
Now it's 2 days and 2 days. Like I just said, There's a 2-day event to make the cut. And then there's a 2-day event after that. It's the knockout round day. Last year the knockout round was a 1-day shootout, and it started over at 0 again the final day. But then everybody voted on keeping it as a 2-day accumulative. It kind of knocks the luck factor out, where somebody can't just catch a 10-pounder on the final day when it's a 1-day shootout and win the tournament. Now it's got to be 2 days of weight, which is really the real more fair way to do it. So not as exciting sometimes, because 1-day shootout's great for TV, but overall for what we do for a living, it's better to kind of give a little bit more consistency in there to count.
Yeah. I mean, if you come, you go into the second day and you've already got 21 pounds, and you're sitting there going, hey, this is, I'm sitting in 4th right now, and I know that I can actually make that instead of cutting it back over and but I don't know. I mean, like you said, for TV, it probably looks really good when they cut it and go, all right, now you got to do it all over again the next day,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I like the adding together weight, because that's usually, I do better when it's like that than the other way. Because even right now, I've done all year this year, I've led a couple tournaments this year. Out of the first 3, I've led 2 of them on one day. And then when we start over at 0 and have the knockout round day, I've not had a great knockout round day, and end up 21st in Florida, 31st in another one, and then even the first one out of cuts, 41st in Tennessee. So my third days haven't been as great as my first 2. So I like being able to hold on to that weight and let it add up. I just got to get better on that third day.
Yeah. Looking at this and everything that you've just talked about, and there's a couple things that really stood out to me. And one is, you've got, how many, do you have just 2 sons?
Yeah, 2 boys, 17 and 21.
And you've got one of them is already, your youngest one, a 17-year-old. He's already fishing at a very high level.
No, my 21-year-old's fishing at a high level. Yeah.
Okay, so he's up there fishing at a high level. And then your youngest son has the basketball?
Yeah, he's a basketball player. He was a fisherman for a while. Right now, he's kind of put it on the back burner. He's all basketballing and doing that. So I'm going to help him do that for a while. Maybe he'll come back around and fish a little later for fun anyway, because he was really good at it. But I love basketball too, from North Carolina. So I love playing ball with him and letting him do good in that. So that's fun.
And but seeing now, so there's all these younger guys coming up, there's the Jonathan Van Dams and the Alton Juniors, and apparently now you're going to throw your hat in the ring with a kid there. And, how is this kind of for you watching them with, you've already got a little bit of benefit from having him, understand electronics a little bit more. How does this kind of feel for you, watching, it just doesn't feel like that long ago that you guys were the young guns, that you were out there and you guys were the ones coming up. But now you're turning back, you're stepping back a little bit, looking at it and going, wow, here's all these young kids coming up, and you're seeing it. How does it make you feel to kind of see that this is still going, it's still going on, and fishing is thriving probably more now than it has in a very long time?
Yeah, it's just awesome, and it's so exciting for me because I love to see my son Laker wanting to come into it and make a living at it, and he's watched us do it, and he's traveled all over the country together with us as we camped all over the world in campers and motorhomes for all those years growing up, and he was homeschooled the entire way from kindergarten through 12th grade by my wife, and she's a teacher, and my other one is put him in school in the 9th grade just to play basketball here mostly. But so seeing him come around and be able to have the opportunity to make a living, because for a long time it wasn't a a sport that you'd want to encourage your kid to try to do, because you know what a grind and a struggle it was to make it. And it's still a grind and a struggle to make it, but you can make it a lot better now, a lot better odds of making a living at it now than it was, when I started, 30 years ago. So, and seeing with all the more tours, more stuff, but with Major League Fishing and all the broad reach of Major League Fishing, and Major League Fishing's brought us a way better platform for media, and a lot bigger reach, and with their live stream and all the media platforms they have through the Cronky Sports and Entertainment Group as partnerships there, it just really makes me feel good about encouraging Laker to come on and do it, because he can do it, and being able to guide and do things like that. So it's great. I love it, and it's helping me stay young and sharp and want to be competitive for a long time because of it.
Yeah, because that's kind of one of the things I was going to say is it's interesting to see, like you said, that now you can kind of make a living at it, because I feel like there's a lot more opportunities. You were in Bassmaster for a very long time, which was basically it was the epicenter for bass fishing forever. Finally,
it was all we had for a long time.
Yeah, and finally some guys came along and said, "Hey, there's just some things that need to change." And I think look, I mean, you just came off of winning a check at the heavy hitters, and taking home 50,000 there. You got a check for being fourth place. It just seems like people are starting to acknowledge there's a little bit of, this sport has more to offer. I think, one of the things, and I know, this past year that we had a pretty bad thing, not in our sport. Technically, it was just in fishing in general with the whole weight scandal, guys, loading up these walleyes and no presses, bad press is bad press, and that sort of thing. But at the same time, it did open a few eyes for people, I think, in the general public, because I don't even know how many calls about people, telling me, God, did you see this scandal? Did you see this thing that these guys are weighing fish? They were fishing for $30,000, and it's like, the money wise, it's who cares? 30,000 isn't that? I mean, it's not. I mean, it's good money, but it's nothing to sneeze about what these guys are actually doing out here on the Bass Pro Tour. I mean, I already know two guys that have won and are millionaires. Luke Clausen. He's done it. There's just so many different things that there's out there now that I think is really coming along, and seeing yourself be energized and re-energized by what's going on now, and seeing this, that is, to me, that's just amazing to see the places.
It come to. It is, and that's what I'm so excited about. Is I say it all the time. I'm not an owner. I don't have any share or know anything in Major League Fishing, but I truly love the format and the vision behind the tour, and what Boyd Duckett and Gary Klein did to kind of bring it to fruition, and the whole catch, weigh, and release format with conservation, taking care of the lake so much better, and trying to hopefully grow that style of fishing, catch, weigh, release, into more mainstream tournaments across the board, just so we can take care of the lakes better, because we've got so many more people fishing our lakes than we used to. So we got to really be careful to take care of them and manage them better for everybody. And so the excitement of just seeing that and being one of the the pioneers that I'm kind of a tweener. I say I'm not an old one and I'm not a young one. I'm kind of in between. And so I know where we came from, and I know where we're going and where we're at now too. And so I can really be thankful for where we've come from and where we are now. And and it's always a chance of getting better little by little every year, and purses getting better, more sponsors getting involved with the platform and reaching more people. So it's looking great on Major League Fishing. I tell you that. I feel good about it, and I'm glad my son's coming along. I hope to see him come up and get on the Bass Pro Tour, because it's the ultimate dream, like Alton Jr.'s done with Alton Jones. Alton Jr. traveled on tour all these years as a kid, and I knew him when he was a kid. I watched him grow all the way up, and I always said he would come out and be taking my money one day, and I didn't really understand it would be as bad as it is this quick, because he's already done it really bad really quick. So I'd love for my son to be able to do the same thing.
Yeah, you just want to get some of your money back.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, at that point, we kind of got to wrap the show up here. I've taken enough of your time. I really appreciate it. Randy, you're always a wealth of knowledge. You're a great, ambassador for this sport. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to us a little bit about today and just kind of, do what you do.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. Appreciate you having a good podcast to get the information out, and for a great magazine like Bass Angler Magazine to kind of give the tips and techniques and help people learn how to catch more fish. That's what we all, want to do. That's what our passion is, and I'm glad to be able to represent the sport and be a part of it.
Well, again, thank you so much. Good luck on Guntersville. Keep focused. Don't get too distracted being at home and all that. But
That's right.
Have good practice and have a good time out there. And we'll talk to you. You win an event. Trust me, your phone's ringing again. So
yeah, we get right back on here soon and get to talk about how I won Guntersville. That'd be great. So let's plan on that.
I'll pencil it in right now.
Yeah. All right.
So, all right, sir. Thank you very much again. And guys, we're going to sign off now. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you really enjoyed this show. Randy's a great guy, and we will catch you on the next one. Talk to you later.